Hello and welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. Man, do we have a great show lined up for you today. Guys, the China threat is real. The China threat is imminent. And I feel like we've been lax in that, in talking about this. So I brought my guest on, Stephen Mosher. He is the president of the Population Research Institute. He's the author of The Devil and Communist China, also The Politically Incorrect Guide to Pandemics, and The Bully of Asia. Stephen, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show.
It's good to be with you again, Carl.
All right, so thanks for coming on. And I gotta tell you, we were talking offline just briefly here, and I doing this stuff for over a decade, talking about politics and domestic and foreign policy and all this kind of good stuff. I never thought that we would be so lax as the superpower of the world, and that we would be so far down this slippery slope, in my opinion, to communism. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic here, Stephen. So I want to get into some domestic issues that are occurring here, but also I want to talk about things that are occurring with China when we consider Taiwan. Jake Sullivan made a recent visit to China. I'd love to get your take on that. But anyway, am I being exaggerative when I say I didn't think America would be so far down this communist road as it seems to me we are?
No, I don't think so. I mean, on the one hand, you've got the most progressive, leftist, Marxist, pick your adjective, Democrat ticket that we've ever seen in American history. On the other hand, you've got China and its propaganda operation in the United States, its influence operation. It just dwarfs Russia. I mean, I know the current administration wants to talk about Russia. Once again, we've been down that road before. But China's propaganda operation here is just enormous. You know, it's hard to imagine that any country would be so foolish as to allow a dangerous adversary to set up a massive propaganda apparatus within its borders that openly works to undermine its institutions, to weaken it into subservience, to propagandize its citizens. But you don't have to imagine that, because that's the foolish country that we're living in. That's America now, because for the past few decades, our elites have allowed China, the self-declared enemy of the United States, by the way, to build a vast network of front groups, Confucius institutes, media outlets, radio stations, newspapers, and more recently, TikTok and other social media. And this is a country that, look, 5 years ago, the Chinese Communist Party openly declared a, quote, people's war on America, a people's war on America. It doesn't get more obvious or blatant than that, does it, Carl?
No, it does not. Not to mention they have some farmland inside of the United States that blows the heck out of my mind here. My guest, Stephen Mosher. Okay, so let's start here. Basically, what happened is you have this aide, and now I don't know why I don't have my notes right in front of me, but an aide of Kathy Hochul, and I seriously just lost my notes to this thing. Anyway, an aide of Kathy Hochul that has been arrested. Apparently, she is a spy for the CCP. This is kind of crazy to me, and it just dovetails off of your point. It seems to me, you know, I want to say Dems. I'm Democrats. I'm not convinced that it's just Democrats that seem to be so gullible in our government. But you've had Dianne Feinstein that literally had a Chinese spy working for her for 8 years. You've had Eric Swalwell sleeping with a Chinese spy, and now you have Kathy Hochul, who apparently this young lady, this spy, and let me get her name, Linda Sun, and her husband, Linda Sun, has been working within the New York government for over a decade. It's shocking to me that there's not more scrutiny, and I hate to say this, Stephen, but I just got to be honest. When you have Chinese employees, I think it's incumbent upon the U.S., given the fact that just based upon what you said with the CCP, they're in an open war against us, a Cold War. But shouldn't we be doing more due diligence, more scrutiny? I mean, and I know people are going to get offended by that, but I'm sorry. I just feel like that's where we are.
Well, I think that any government official, well, federal, state, or local, regardless of where they come from, what their ethnicity is, sooner or later is going to be approached by a Chinese agent, someone from the local Chinese consulate, and so on and so forth, and they'll try to compromise them. They always do. Sometimes they use honeypots, sometimes they use money. They also use drugs. Sometimes they use all three. So this is across the board. Doesn't matter where you're from or where your parents came from. But look, but following the normalization of diplomatic relations with China, which was way back in 1979, China set about creating pro-Communist Party organizations in the United States. I know because I was working with the Cox Commission in 1998, long time ago now, when we estimated, Congressman Chris Cox estimated there were 8,000 front groups in operation run by the Chinese Communist Party 25 years ago. Now, that number is surely many times larger today. And here's how it works. They set up China-controlled organizations in American big cities mostly, where there are large concentrations of Chinese immigrants. And look, some of these immigrants don't have any choice. They have family back in China. Right. And the communist agents will come to them and say, we need you to do A, B, and C. Otherwise, your family back in China will suffer. So they can be heavy-handed. And these organizations in places like New York and Los Angeles, San Francisco, they work for the election of China-friendly politicians like Nancy Pelosi and like Governor Hochul. And then once they're elected, they say, by the way, we helped you get elected. Why don't you pick our good friend Linda Sun for a key position in the city government or the state government following the election? That's how Nancy Pelosi wound up with a communist spy as her driver.
Dianne Feinstein,
rather, as her driver for over a decade. It's just astonishing.
Okay. Oh, so the Chinese government is recommending employees or their liaisons to American politicians?
Well, yeah, and there are lots of associations set up, funded by and basically run by Chinese attached to the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C., or the Chinese consulates in Houston, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. This was the New York consulate, by the way. And these are huge operations. Look, Carl, we have in a city called Shenyang in northern China, we have about 25 American diplomats. In New York, the Chinese embassy has a couple hundred. The Chinese consulate has a couple hundred. So there are huge numbers of these agents allowed into our country. And what are they doing? They're always recruiting. They're always trying to drum up support for the Chinese Communist Party and its interest in the United States, which are not the interests of Americans. And look, they're supported by China-run newspapers. You walk down the streets of New York City and other major cities, you will see the China Daily, China Daily newspaper boxes on every other street corner. There are Confucius Institutes on our college campuses telling young Americans that the Tiananmen massacre never happened, that Tibet has always been a part of China. And by the way, Tibet can never be independent. We're going to take it back by military force sooner or later. So, what can we do about this silent invasion? Well, first of all, I also, and this goes way back too, in 2001, went on a lecture tour of FBI offices around the country, starting in Washington, D.C., going up to New York City. I was scheduled to go to all the FBI offices to talk about what? To talk about Chinese espionage in the United States, to talk about these Chinese front groups that were being set up everywhere, to talk about the people like Linda Sun, who just wound up being arrested, who'd gotten into U.S. government. And guess what happened? Just as that effort was about to get off the ground, 9/11 happened. The Twin Towers came down, and the FBI said, oh, we're not interested in that anymore. We got to focus on terrorism. Well, I understand. We lost 3,000 Americans. But we should have turned back to address this problem 20 years ago, and we didn't. We've kept our eye off the ball.
We only have a minute left in this block. I'm speaking to my guest, Stephen Mosher, author of The Bully of Asia and more books. We'll get to that in just a minute. It's so this is very illuminating that you mentioned this, Stephen, because I've interviewed Stephen Friend, whistleblower FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin, FBI whistleblower. And basically, both of these guys said it's like after 9/11, we went after the terrorists. We found, plots that were occurring right here within the United States. And after that, it's basically like we had nothing to do. And the FBI turned their ire against American citizens. Right. But it seems like the FBI would have been well served to turn their ire against China. We got 40 seconds.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. China is the large and growing threat. Americans who go to church on Sunday, grandmas who demonstrate outside abortion clinics, those aren't threats to America. They're the bedrock of America. They're people of prayer, people of faith, people who love this country. China, the Chinese Communist Party, does not love America. It wants America not just in second place. It wants America subservient. It wants America as the number one power in the world destroyed. That's not in our interest to let happen.
All right. Now, again, guys, I am speaking to my guest, Stephen Mosher. He is the president of the Population Research Institute, author of Devil and Communist China, Politically Incorrect Guide to Pandemics and the Bully of Asia. We'll be back with more after the break. You guys stay tuned. Hey, Carl Jackson here for Priority Gold. Economists warn that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and your 401k account as the stock market braces for impact. With inflation on the rise and global uncertainty looming, it's clear why central banks and savvy Americans are turning to gold. In times like this, Proverbs 21:20 reminds us to preserve what we've built. Right now, that wisdom points us towards gold. If you haven't had your eye on gold, it's time to make it a priority. I'm Carl Jackson, and I'm urging you to call my friends at Priority Gold to find out how they can help you diversify your savings with physical gold and silver. Call 1-800-405-GOLD or visit PriorityGold.com/golden for a free gold info guide. Plus, see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Again, call 1-800-405 to speak with a gold specialist or visit PriorityGold.com/golden to learn more. That's 1-800-405-GOLD. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Again, I'm speaking to my guest, Stephen Mosher. Make sure you follow him on X at Stephen W. Mosher. Mosher is spelled Mosher. Guys, listen, I don't know why this story of Kathy Hochul's age being charged, Governor Kathy Hochul, whom I like to call the nanny of New York. This should be a major story. Again, a former top aide of Governor Kathy Hochul, the nanny of New York, was indicted in federal court for allegedly acting as a foreign agent for the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party in exchange for millions of dollars. Both she and her husband lived in the mansion. She drove a Ferrari. I mean, this is a lady that has a state job, for God's sakes. The charges include violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, which concerns me, and I'm sure everyone, and money laundering. According to the DOJ, her husband was charged with money laundering conspiracy to commit bank fraud, and misuse of means of identification. Okay, so, Stephen, here's what I'd like to ask. We talked about it a little offline. I don't think that Americans understand the threat of China, cozying up to China, and what China could do. Why should Americans be concerned that China would become the superpower of the world? And let me tag this on, because I didn't mention this, but I know you'll know about it. The influence that they're having in Western countries, Latin countries in particular, that are surrounding us.
Well, I mean, the short answer, Carl, is they're at war with us. They've always been at war with us. Chairman Mao, way back when he founded the Chinese Communist Party, made it clear that he was following the Soviet Union down its path towards socialism, towards communism. And he consciously rejected democracy. Separation of powers would have weakened his power as the absolute dictator. The Chinese Communist Party has always regarded the United States as the number one enemy that must be defeated. And remember, we fought a war against China in Korea. And there was never any peace treaty signed, just an armistice, which is a ceasefire. So we're technically still at war with China. People don't realize that. We fought a war in Vietnam where there were 300,000 troops, Chinese troops in North Vietnam, helping them to maintain their infrastructure, repairing bridges. So we were fighting against them then. And we're fighting a Cold War against them now, really across all domains except the kinetic. We're not firing bullets at each other, thank God. But they are encroaching on the territory of our allies. They're interdicting ships on the high seas, in the Philippines and elsewhere, and threatening, the world order that was set up after World War II. They want a different kind of world where they're the middle kingdom, they're the kingdom at the center of the earth, and all the other countries of the world bring tribute and bow and kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party. Remember, we're talking about the Chinese Communist Party, not the Chinese people. The Chinese Communist Party is the biggest killing machine in human history, and it has killed off tens of millions of Chinese people. So the Chinese Communist Party is everywhere, and it is using the same tactics against the United States that it used to defeat domestic enemy in China during the Civil War. They did the same thing. The nationalists adopted an American Constitution. They had freedom of speech, a rather open society. What did the communists do? They came in, they set up newspapers, they sent Zhou Enlai, they sent agents into the nationalist areas to organize cells and spy on Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists. And they destroyed the nationalists from within, and then they just rolled over them militarily. They're doing the same thing now. It's the same playbook, Carl.
Oh, and you know what concerns me, Stephen, is this some of this DEI, CRT, all this kind of stuff. I feel like Americans have we've made ourselves vulnerable to the CCP by adopting some of these values that the progressives that within the Democrat Party, which is totally anti-progressive, but they're progressives within it, basically communists within the Democrat Party. Even Kamala Harris. I know some people will be offended about that, but this chick's positions are communist. I mean, she is so far to the left, it's insane. I think she's an authoritarian. What role do you think DEI, CRT, all of this kind of stuff, is this a tactic that China would use in order to infiltrate the United States and maybe influence some people in our institutions of government, academia, Hollywood, so on, et cetera?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she was Linda Sun, before she became the deputy chief of staff to Hochul, was in charge of the diversity programs. So that's how these people, in part, wormed their way into government and get promoted with the support of the local Communist Party, Chinese Communist Party run organization. But you want to talk about people who have Marxist views. We can talk about Tim Walz for a minute. Tim Walz and I have something in common. We both went to China. We both speak Chinese. The difference is that I went to China and I talked to ordinary people, and they told me the government was tyrannical. The government was the big landlord that took most of their production and gave them back only enough to survive. And Tim Walz went to China, and he didn't talk to ordinary people. He talked to Chinese communist officials who loaded him down with presents and told him that communism is wonderful because everyone gets free food and free housing. Well, no, they don't. The people in China do not get free food and free housing. They did, for a short time in 1958, get free food in the communes, and then the commune system ran out of food, and they were sent home to starve. 45 million of them starved to death. So much for free food, right? And free housing in the countryside. People have to build their own homes, and if they're not careful, a local communist official comes and bulldozes them, takes their land, builds a high-rise apartment building, and says, now you can rent from me. You don't own your own home anymore, but you have no place to live. You'll have to pay me rent to live in my new apartment building, which, by the way, was built on your land. So much for free housing. So Tim Walz came away from China with a very, very different view of China than the reality of China. And even today, Tim Walz will say that China is not our adversary. Tim, did you forget that in 2019, China declared a people's war on the United States? Chinese generals have said we will have to fight a war against the United States for dominance in the Pacific sooner or later. They're on record as saying that, and Tim Walz is somewhere off in La Land saying that China and Chinese Communist Party is not an adversary.
Yeah, I gotta listen. I'm so concerned about a Harris Walz ticket, and I pray to God that they don't get elected. I'm praying that more Americans will wake up. I'm praying that Trump's debate with Harris next week will open the eyes of many, and I hope that he'll perform well because these people are absolutely terrifying. That the fact that Kamala Harris's first economic proposal, was to attack grocery stores with price gouging. I'm like, that's insane. I mean, if you do that kind of stuff, all it's going to do is cause starvation. She wants to build 3 million houses. Kind of sounds like, China. China to me. These people seem to be getting their ideas from China when it comes to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. It is terrifying to contemplate, and my concern is that a lot of people on the left are just emotional. They exist in bubbles. They have the help of the mainstream media and also big tech, social media that are just feeding them one side of the news, and then they're not hearing the real story. And before we know it, we're going to lose America because half of Americans are willing to vote for communist ideas.
Yeah, and they want to lead us once more down the socialist road to ruin, as if we don't have history. Pol Pot in Cambodia, Mao in China, Stalin in the Soviet Union. Every time you go down this path, Venezuela, Cuba, the end result is always the same. and the cure supposedly is worse, than the disease. Sure, we have some economic problems, but the solution to that is to unleash the potential of the American people, allow them to start businesses, raise families, contribute to the economy in a positive way, not government control. I saw that up close and personal in China, where the Chinese villagers in the commune I was living in had their land taken away from them. And guess what? Their standard of living did not go up. It went down. They didn't have more food. They starved to death. And they lost control of their own destiny. It's sad. They gave up their freedom for a promise, for a fiction that the government would take care of them, and the government abandoned them. And now in China, we see the same thing. Xi Jinping leading China once more down the socialist road to ruin. He's attacking the people who raised China out of poverty over the last 20 years. He's expropriating their wealth. He's doing the same thing that communist dictators do sooner or later. And this tax on unrealized capital gains, people may not understand what that is. That's taking money from you that you don't have. Anyway.
I was just thinking about that yesterday. Honestly, I was like, people were cheering for this stuff. They have no idea what they're cheering for. I think Americans have been so blessed. We just don't understand. It's almost like we need some type of struggle. People, instead of just being thankful for where they are, we need some type of struggle. 20 seconds to respond.
Yeah, well, we have a struggle, and we have 2 months to figure out what side of that struggle we're going to wind up on. We're going to wind up either on top or on the bottom, and the bottom means going down the socialist road, going down the China road. China claims it has a superior economic and political system. It doesn't, but a lot of young Americans simply don't know the truth.
Yeah,
and we need to reach them. We need to educate them, which is what you're doing every day, Carl.
We'll leave it right there for this segment. We'll be back with one more segment with Stephen Mosher. Stay tuned. Hey, Carl Jackson here. You've asked and MyPillow has listened. They're finally bringing you the most requested offer ever. Right now, you can get the queen size premium MyPillow for just $19.98. MyPillow is made with a patented adjustable feel. It adjusts to your exact individual needs, regardless of your sleep position. It helps to keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long, so you get the best sleep of your life. Plus, it stays cool as well. I love that. But that's not all. You can get their 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets for just $25, the brand new mattress topper for as low as $69.98, and their famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25, and so much more. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com or give them a call at 800-858-0263. Use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, I don't spell it like the communists, to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products, including the premium queen size MyPillow for just $19.98. That's the lowest price ever. Don't delay. Order today. Use promo code Carl at checkout. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Again, I'm joined by my guest, Stephen Mosher. And guys, you're going to want to go out and follow him on X at Stephen W. Mosher. All right. And Mosher is spelled Mosher. When it comes to China, I mean, this guy, he has such a vast array of knowledge. I think it's important that we follow him. If we don't want to end up like China, America is the greatest country that God has ever given man. And we have a responsibility as Americans to protect our country from enemies, both foreign and domestic. And China has such an influence on American culture right now that I'm not even convinced that many Republicans realize how much so. And this news that broke earlier in the week with a senior aide for Governor Kathy Hochul being accused as a spy, I sit here and wonder how many more people are working within our government, spies within our government, and taking information back to China. Stephen, there was a headline. I didn't follow up on it, but there's apparently a defense contractor whose employees travel to China. And I forget the name of the contractor, and so I probably shouldn't be talking about this. But they took their laptops to China. Apparently, their laptops had all of this information on it about some of our military secrets, and these guys were basically hacked. Did you hear about that story? We'll move on because it's just.
No, I hear about stories like that all the time, and actually, anyone traveling to China should leave their electronic equipment behind and just buy a phone, off a store and use it temporarily in China. In fact, most American diplomats are told to do exactly that. You leave your smartphones at home. You leave your computers at home. If you bring a phone, you never leave it unattended in China because someone will come in and download the data. When you go into China through Chinese immigration, you have to hand over your phone, and they will download. They will put an app on it so they can track where you're going and what you're doing and who you're talking to and what you say. So yeah, I mean, electronic communications in China are not secure. Why would anyone be so foolish as to take a laptop with top secret information, especially defense information, to China? You know it's going to be hacked, and you wonder if that wasn't deliberate. Later claiming that, it was an accident. I didn't know they were going to do it. But you're basically handing over data, weakening our national security and making an attack by China on the United States more likely.
Okay, so I want to read something that you posted on X here, Stephen, for the audience, and then I just want to spend a couple more minutes on this Chinese spy, Linda Sun, that was hired by Governor Kathy Hochul, also worked for former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and then get into Jake Sullivan's visit to China, because our foreign policy with these people in charge is an absolute joke, in my opinion. But here's what you posted on X. Every Chinese American, especially those in an important government position, will sooner or later be approached by CCP agents. They offer bribes and other benefits to the target. They force close relatives to pressure them. Not all succumb, you write, but many of my once stalwart pro-democracy Chinese friends have gone over to the dark side. The national security risk is real and growing by the day. Your quick response to that?
Yeah, very sad for me because I got involved in Chinese politics back in the 1980s. I was there in Tiananmen, June 4th, 1989. I helped people escape from China. I had one Democratic activist living in my home. We were moving in the early 90s to set up pro-democracy organizations overseas to help bring democracy back to China. And one by one, over the 90s and into this century, Carl, people who worked with me in the pro-democracy movement were picked off, either because they had a sick father or mother back in China. They wanted to go see him. And the Chinese Communist Party said, yeah, we'll give you a visa and then you work for us. They ran out of money in the United States. Communist Party said to them, there's a quick and easy way to make money. Just work for us. So these organizations that I worked with, these people I worked with, many of them have gone over to the dark side. It's very bad, hard for me to see. It's very difficult to deal with this, because you have people who are absolutely committed to the pro-democracy cause being subverted, being seduced, and going over to support now the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we have government officials that are so desperate for power, they're singing the Russia, Russia, Russia tune again, where Vladimir Putin is not the threat to the Western Hemisphere, obviously, that China is. But let me just read part of this Daily Signal column to you about Linda Sun and her husband, and her husband, Chris Hu. It says here, the indictment alleges that Sun, who served as deputy chief of staff for Hochul before being fired in 2023, used her influence to promote the interests of China. Her alleged activities included changing official statements on Beijing's behalf, blocking Taiwanese government representatives from meeting with senior New York officials. Wow. Arranging for visiting Chinese government delegations to meet with state officials, attempting to arrange a trip to China by a senior New York politician, and proving unauthorized invitation letters to facilitate travel by PRC government officials into the United States. So here this lady is literally working in New York City, working against Taiwan and bringing Chinese officials in front of our representatives rather than our allies. That scares the crud out of me. This is insane.
Well, it is, and you can very well know that, and people should know that this is happening in government offices, in state government offices, as well as local municipalities, places, cities around the United States, every single day, where you have these people who burrowed into our system, working on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party, inviting people over from China. Who are they? Well, we don't care because the governor of New York has signed a letter saying we're inviting them over. No, she hasn't. Who signed the letter was Linda Sun, and the people being invited over may very well be Chinese intelligence agents. So she was a conduit for Chinese intelligence agents to come over to the U.S. And I'm very tired of hearing about Russia. Yeah, we heard about $10 million from Russia. I will tell you, Carl, that China spends billions and billions of dollars on its information warfare, on its United Front organizations in the United States that it sets up to promote American politicians being elected into office, who would then in turn promote the interest of the Chinese Communist Party. This is massive. It is ongoing, and it is a deadly threat to the United States of America.
Okay, so now Jake Sullivan had a recent visit to China to try to cool relations. He was able to meet with, and now I forget the gentleman that he didn't meet with Xi Jinping, but apparently the gentleman that's overseeing the military, and the name escapes me. And for some reason, just when I needed it, my computer is acting up here. But nonetheless, Jake Sullivan makes a trip to China. Do you think that did any good? What impact is that going to have on American relations with China? Do you think the Biden-Harris administration, in the short time, Lord willing, they have left in the White House, will be able to stop China's initiative to take over the world?
No, I don't think. I think Jake Sullivan remembers the last time he was out of office, before he came into the Biden administration. He was receiving a salary from Penn State University, which got $100 million from a generous Chinese donor to fund Biden's visiting professorship and the Biden Center at Penn State. So, no, I think Jake Sullivan knows very well who his past paymasters have been. And I think Jake and the other guys in the White House are the same people who, every time Biden is asked about Taiwan, he says, "Oh yeah, we would defend Taiwan if it's attacked." And it's a free market democracy, he says. And then someone in the White House walks it back and says, "Oh no, that's not our policy. Our policy is strategic ambiguity." What is that? It means we're not going to tell you what we do. If China invades Taiwan, we might defend Taiwan, but we might not defend Taiwan. It's called strategic ambiguity. It's one of those genius ideas that is not really very bright.
It's called pure stupidity. And apparently he met with General Zhang. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, Youzia. the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. The mere fact that this specific meeting, this is according to RCP, occurred after a 2-year freeze in communications with its military officials suggests that China's Xi Jinping is as interested in maintaining stability over the preceding months as the Biden administration is. We got 30 seconds for you to respond here to that. What should America be expecting on the foreign policy front with China?
Well, Jake Sullivan met with General Zhang, and General Zhang chewed him out. And Jake Sullivan did nothing but sort of stand there like a 6-year-old boy in kindergarten taking abuse because basically the military-to-military exchanges with China are just a way for the Chinese military to collect information about our military activities. I don't think they serve any useful purpose.
Wow. And not to mention, just like you said, Jake Sullivan basically captured, like China does many Americans. Stephen Mosher, thank you for joining us, author of The Bully of Asia. Until next time, folks, don't grow weary doing good. Hey, Carl Jackson here for Priority Gold. Economists warn that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and your 401k account as the stock market braces for impact. With inflation on the rise and global uncertainty looming, it's clear why central banks and savvy Americans are turning to gold. In times like this, Proverbs 21:20 reminds us to preserve what we've built. Right now, that wisdom points us towards gold. If you haven't had your eye on gold, it's time to make it a priority. I'm Carl Jackson, and I'm urging you to call my friends at Priority Gold to find out how they can help you diversify your savings with physical gold and silver. Call 1-800-405-GOLD or visit PriorityGold.com/golden for a free gold info guide. Plus, see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Again, call 1-800-405 to speak with a gold specialist or visit PriorityGold.com/golden to learn more. That's 1-800-405-GOLD.